It was around 2014 when this happened. I had just started my nursing internship at the hospital, and my family had moved into a new house a few years ago. We bought an electronic doorbell, the kind with a button outside and a chime inside the house. At that time, it was just me and my mom living there, two women with no relatives or friends nearby. So, when strange things started happening, our first thought was that it might be burglars scouting the area, but the more we thought about it, the less sense it made. The doorbell worked fine at first, but after a few days, strange things started happening. The first time, it was only my mom who heard it. Between 1 and 3 in the morning, the doorbell suddenly started ringing, ding dong, very rhythmically, not too fast, not too slow, just continuously. My mom mentioned it subtly the next day, but I didn't pay much attention and went off to my internship. I don't remember the details clearly because I either slept through it or wasn't home at the time. Why didn't we call the police? Maybe my mom had her reasons. I didn't know much. She just subtly mentioned the doorbell ringing at midnight, without making it sound too strange, so I didn't take it seriously. The second time was the night I found out about it, around the same time. I was jolted awake by the piercing doorbell sound. The moment I got up, it was pure terror, dark room, piercing doorbell sound. The bedroom door was closed, and the sound of the doorbell was particularly loud, amplified by the night silence. Ding dong, continuously. My mom and I tiptoed to the peephole, but the outside light was off, and it was too dark to see anything. We had to open the door to turn on the corridor light. It rang for a while, and my mom shouted, "Who is it? If you knock again, I'll call the police." There was dead silence outside, and the ringing stopped for a while, then started again, ding dong. It was too piercing, and I didn't know what to do. My mom picked up the phone to call the police but didn't for some reason. Luckily, except for the ringing, there were no other disturbances that night. The ringing stopped after a while, and the next day my mom went to the security guard to check the surveillance, but the cameras weren't on. She left her number and told the guard to catch whoever was knocking if it happened again. The third time was the same night we contacted the security guard. Sometimes the corridor light would be turned off by the neighbors, and we were already very scared, so we didn't tell the neighbors not to turn off the light. When the doorbell rang again that night, it was still pitch black outside the peephole. The scariest part was not the startling ding-dong sound. When we shouted that we were going to call the police, the doorbell noticeably paused for a second and then started being pressed frantically, ding-dong, so rapidly that the doorbell couldn't produce the normal sound, and the tone changed. My mom called the police this time, but the surveillance didn't show anyone entering the building, and the security guard was too scared to come upstairs. The atmosphere gave me severe anxiety that has lasted for years. Even now, hearing a doorbell or knocking can make me hyperventilate and my legs go weak. My mom decisively unplugged the doorbell, and we made it through the night. The next day, the weather was overcast as if it was going to rain, very dark, and the lighting in the house was dim and yellowish. I was flipping through a book in the living room when the doorbell suddenly rang. Tears welled up in my eyes from the scare. I mustered up the courage to look, and I could only see my mom squatting with her back to me. I couldn't even see her profile. She was pressing the doorbell, ding dong, then started adjusting the doorbell sound, and then the volume. I was about to cry, mustering up the courage to shout "Mom," but she didn't respond, didn't even react, just kept fiddling with the doorbell. I was paralyzed with fear, and after a while, she suddenly stood up without even glancing at me. I didn't dare bring it up again, it was too creepy. The fourth time was a few days later. We thought the previous police call had scared off whoever was outside. That night, close to dawn, the doorbell rang again. There was no one outside the peephole, but the doorbell kept ringing. My mom said she would open the door, and I hid behind it, feeling like we were in a life-or-death situation. Once the door was open, there was no one there. The doorbell stopped ringing as soon as the door opened. After that, it never happened again. The same doorbell is still in our house, but it never rings at night anymore. However, the psychological shadow it left remains. Later, one night, I went out to take out the trash in the same building. The corridor was very dark, and the hallway lights were button-operated, installed at the entrance of each apartment, with only one button per 2 apartments. That night, I didn't bring my phone, which I usually have with me at all times, thinking I'd be quick. When I returned, the elevator stopped at a floor, and the door suddenly opened. Typically, the neighbors don't leave the hallway lights on to save electricity. The elevator faces the stairs, with only a bit of light coming from the stairway window, barely enough to see anything. The elevator itself was brightly lit, and when the door opened, I saw no one, and the neighbors' doors were tightly shut. I didn't think much of it, pressed the close button, but halfway through closing, it felt like someone pushed the door, and it opened again. I tried closing it again, and it opened halfway. With no phone, I had no choice but to muster the courage to dash out of the elevator. I thought I could take the stairs, just a few more floors to home. Running up the dim stairway, I saw a black stroller with its canopy open, facing away from the stairs, and a wooden board blocking the way like a makeshift gate. Honestly, I wouldn't have dared go near it even without the blockage. I didn't want to stay, so I decided to run down. The elevator, still on my floor, should have moved by now, but it hadn't. Strangely, once I left, the elevator door closed. I didn't dare turn on the lights, just bolted downstairs. Reaching the next floor, I encountered the eeriest scene: piles of shoes scattered haphazardly, covering every inch of the small landing. It felt like the floor was covered in debris, preventing me from stepping anywhere. A strong sense of fear overwhelmed me, like seeing a corpse. I forced myself to press the elevator button, and it came down to my floor. I got in, and this time, it took me home smoothly. When I told my mom, she immediately dismissed it, saying the elevator had been malfunctioning recently. After experiencing these eerie events, I began to wonder what caused these doorbell rings. Was it a technical glitch, a prank, or some inexplicable supernatural phenomenon? Every time I recall these incidents, I get chills. Have you experienced anything similar? How have such inexplicable experiences affected your life? Please share your stories and thoughts in the comments, so we can explore these mysterious experiences together. Thank you for watching and supporting my channel. Subscribe for more real and thrilling stories. See you next time.